Okay, welcome everyone to SEO Office Hours. My name is Michael Chidzey. I'm an SEO here at Good Signals. And part of what we do, along with special guests, are these office hour sessions where people can jump in and ask their questions around their website and web search. By the way, nobody here is in the hot seat and we might not know all the answers, but multiple heads thinking about a problem should help. We've had a bunch of questions submitted already, as you can see, but if there's anybody here live on the call that would like to ask any questions, feel free to flag yourself in the chat functionality, which will be monitored. Also, there's usually a bunch of other SEOs here, and I think one of the best things about SEO Office Hours isn't just the four of us answering those questions, but everybody else also sharing their perspective. So feel free to please do that. I think that's one of the best things, as I said. So you might have noticed that Joe's not with us today, but instead we have her stunt double, Ruth, who is Joe's twin sister. Morning, Ruth. How are you?
Well, actually, it's good evening. I am here from Brisbane, so I'm tuning in here. If anyone else is from Brisbane or from anywhere else, want to put their details in the chat, where they're calling from, or which countries they're zooming in for, that'd be great. Yes, I'm here, Ruth Turnbull. Joe could not be here today, so thanks for having me. Really appreciate being the co-host here. I'm more of a digital marketing consultant than Joe being the SEO expert. I used to work in the wine trade in London and PR before moving into digital marketing here in Brisbane. I want to also say hello to Katarina and Helene for joining us. I want to say welcome again. I think you've been here before, and it's great to have you on SEO Office Hours. I'm going to quickly introduce Katarina and Helene before we get into the questions. So I wanted to say Katarina is a senior growth hacker and SEO consultant at Genera, which is a leading growth agency in the Nordics. She's very passionate about SEO, AI, and cut flower gardening. So outside of her day-to-day role, Katarina actually tends to her garden while also growing the organic traffic to her blog, Slow Flower Garden. And this is very impressive. She grew it from 0 to 50,000 monthly organic visitors in just 1 year. That is extremely impressive. Last year, Katarina spoke at SEO Vibes on tour in Helsinki, the Marketing Business Summit in Milan, and Brighton SEO. I'm going to put details of Katarina and both Helene's bios in the chat shortly. And just want to say thanks again for joining us. And Helene, thank you for joining us as well. Helene is director of SEO at the search marketing agency called Flow Agency. You might actually also know it as Flow SEO. It's changed names recently. Interesting enough, you were actually talking about an anthropology on your last time we were here. She studied anthropology and now she's working in SEO. You mentioned that that's been very helpful. Helene thrives analyzing complex data sets, digging into what makes us all human, and ethical marketing. And when Helene is not writing or speaking about SEO and content marketing, she's exploring many different historic towns across Europe, as well as attending many food and wine festivals. That sounds very fun. And spending time with her cat and 3 chickens, where you're at home in Slovenia. Helene has spoken at many different events in the past, including Brighton SEO, as well as contributing to many publications like Search Engine Journal, Women in Tech SEO, BuzzSumo, and many more. Helene, you seem super duper busy. So without further ado, I'll put both details into the chat here. And as I said before we get into the questions, before I hand back to Mike, please do make a note of where you're calling in from in the chat. I can see a few people. Moira, you're calling from Australia? Yes. Oh, Joe's new hairstylist this Steve. Yes. What do you think? Should Joe go short? So yes, let me put that in the chat. And I will head you back to Mike. So check the chat for the details of Katarina and Helene. So keep a lookout.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining us. We'll jump straight in. We've got a couple of quite long questions, so Ruth will also put them in the chat if anybody wants to follow along. We've recently implemented a significant number of changes aimed at improving SEO traffic. When making these changes, how can we better understand what's working? Previously, we documented annotations directly within analytics, but now we've transitioned to tracking them in a spreadsheet. However, it's not immediately clear which of those actions are most effective. Who would like to kick off? How are people tracking what's working and what's not? Helene, you're smiling. Are you happy to go for it?
I can, yeah. It's probably not going to be the most helpful, but I would say tracking every single change is just like running in circles again and again and again. You're not going to be able to say, oh, when I changed the title to this or when I updated a link to this, it works and I have SEO traffic. It's a combination of everything. So I think looking at like a page as a whole or even page types or section of your site and how they're performing, that's going to be a lot more useful than sitting there and being like, I changed these 3 links on this URL. I updated the title on this URL, and you keep writing that down. All that energy you're using writing all that stuff down could be doing other SEO updates, in my opinion. It's, you know that you're doing updates, you know that you're like in there and you're working on it. That's part of your job. So hopefully there will be changes. And I think just tracking that every single month is how you're going to be able to see that. But avoid over documenting changes. You're not the only one making changes on the site either. So it's a bit futile, in my opinion.
Great. Katarina, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, well, there isn't really a good way to know that if you are doing many times at the same time. If you really want to test something, you should be patient and do one thing and test it. But as Helene said, we want to move forward with SEO, and maybe it's not worth to track every single thing we do. Yeah, but also spreadsheet, I use that for writing down what I have done. And then if you want to check or try to see what's working and what's not, you can go to SEMrush or Ahrefs and take the date before you did the change or the implementation and like a few days or weeks or months after, and see if you can see any changes in there. So maybe you can get some idea of if it's working or not. But yeah, that's my answer.
Great. Okay. Ruth, do you have anything to add, or is there anything in the chat?
Yeah, in the chat, we've got some great comments here. So next, Evan says KPIs, KPIs, KPIs. And Steve says, I'll refrain from the obvious answer from an SEO data provider or Systrix. Pre-post tests are great for larger changes in content shifts. Great, thank you. And regarding Katarina, yes, recording is key, or is important to record before you make the change, and of course afterwards.
Great.
And that was it. Yes.
Cool. Okay, perfect. So to be honest, I tend to work on lots of different projects, and I tend to use whatever our clients are using or used to. So for instance, some of them have particular rank trackers that they use and particular terms that they're following in groups and all of that. And if that's how they evaluate their website, that's what I tend to look at. Personally, I've been using SEO Stack, which is built on top of Google Search Console, which is kind of 2 tools in one. It's like a project management tool where you can include annotations and link it back to specific changes in Google Search Console, and it's really good for tracking those things. So I personally use that, and it gives me an idea of, as I'm making those changes, am I seeing a difference in things like impressions, in terms of clicks, also in terms of things like query counts, those sort of things. I have also used SEOtesting.com quite a few times. I know search pilots are meant to be amazing as well, but that's more for kind of enterprise SEO. SEO testing is quite good if you're trying specific things across a group of a load of templates. So you're making changes to, say you're a travel website, you're making changes to half your location pages, for example, and then you want to compare the difference. So that's quite good. But I think the only thing with our industry is you can't really control what happens. You can only control what you do. So personally, the main thing I'm tracking is kind of what I'm actually doing. And so each month or however often I need to sort of let people know what I'm doing, I'm talking about the changes that we've actually made. And then we're also looking in general, are we better off than we were 3 months ago for those key pages? But it makes sense this time of year, you're looking at this stuff, but it is super difficult to sort of definitely pinpoint a change that you've made to something, particularly when there's things like external factors like updates, or just maybe your competitor has launched a new website or made a load of changes. You might think what you've done has or hasn't been successful, but actually it's just that they've made a few changes. Would anybody else like to add anything before we jump to the next question? I can see there's a few things in the chat. Go for it, Ruth.
Yeah. Simon said, yeah, I use SEOtesting.com for checking changes. However, every single time you make a change and set up a test, Google will release a change. So yes, that's a bit frustrating.
Yeah, I've had to count off quite a few tests because of that. Okay, super.
But yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So we have one question, which is kind of an SEO office hours question, but not at the same time. So I'll very quickly answer this, which is somebody's basically obviously watched this on YouTube and asked how they watch it live. Basically, the page on our website where you ask the question, I obviously need to make it much clearer, but you just sign up there for it. So I'll make it clearer. But yeah, that's where you sign up live. I'll send you a calendar invite. Okay, the next question is, we're looking for the pros and cons of Shopify versus WordPress. They're obviously deciding between which of those to use. Has anybody got any thoughts or used either of them?
I prefer WordPress
And
instead of Shopify.
and any reasons why?
I think you can do more in WordPress, and especially like more custom thing. And if you have a larger site, especially if you have many languages on the website, then definitely WordPress. And I'm also maybe more used to working with WordPress than Shopify.
I was going to say, I think that tends to be the case. If you're used to something, that's what you tend to use. The site, the website that you grew traffic to 50,000, was that a WordPress
That's
website?
a WordPress, yeah.
Ah, so you're like a hardcore WordPress person.
I don't know, but it's for me, WordPress is easier. But then there are, of course, yeah, other people. My colleague, for example, she prefers Shopify. So yeah, maybe it's what you like more.
Helene, what about you? Have you used both of them? Have a preference?
No opinion. I've never used Shopify. Not an e-commerce person, so clueless.
So I've personally used both in many other platforms because again, it depends on what our clients are using. If you're looking at them from an SEO perspective, Google can access all the pages and they're pretty fast depending on, you can put a ton of plugins on WordPress and really slow it down, but out of the box, they both tend to be pretty good. Most people seem to sort of say that Shopify is better for the e-commerce side of things because a lot of that is baked in versus WordPress where you need to get sort of plugins. But I'd say that if you know one of them, I would lean into the one that you're familiar with rather than starting from scratch. Ruth, do we have anything in the comments or do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, just to add to that, Helene's and Katarina, I'm definitely more of a WordPress person. I think if I went through Shopify, it'd be like writing with my left hand, and I'm a right-handed person, so I'm just not used to it. So yes, we do have a few comments. So WordPress apparently is in a great place at the moment. John says here there's no Shopify drama. Albert here actually has said that WordPress is actually easy and custom sizable. Simon's added here, it's Wix for some of my clients, and oh, was that an 11 for my projects? Oh,
Yeah,
you're on mute. I was going to put some information in the chat. And Natalia, 11T, really, for my project, okay. And Natalia says, what does everyone think about the new no-code solutions like Prism, Webflow? I hear a lot of good things, but I'm yet to get a client using one of those. That's obviously, I don't know if that's quite related to Shopify WordPress, but Albert said here with Shopify, it's very difficult to add SEO-friendly URLs. What do you think about that, Michael? With Shopify, is it difficult to add SEO-friendly URLs?
Well, they tend to add in things like their category pages are called collections, and they add things like product subfolders and things like that. So we've had lots of questions in the past around people moving to Shopify and having migration issues where they've got the redirects wrong or something like that because all of their URLs have changed. So pages tend to have the / pages before the rest of the URL. So yeah, it's just if you know it and you know it's there. I think with any of these platforms, Webflow as well, and I can't remember what the other one that was mentioned, but all of them, I think it's a case of you're willing to put the time in to learn how to use them. I know I've worked on Webflow a few times because I've got some clients using those and I've got friends that use it. I can see John, one of my friends, is on here and he's a big Webflow fan. And I think it's once you start using it, you get familiar with the CMS, then you know how to do things on it easy. Yeah, they're all great. You've just got to take the time to learn. Cool. Should we move on to the next question, or did anybody else have anything to add on those? No? Okay, cool. So this question is from somebody just before Christmas. And by the way, Happy New Year, everybody. I forgot to say that at the beginning. So good I am at this. We had Dixon and Dawn on, and there was a company, they migrated their website and had some issues with URLs, and we kind of looked into it and gave some feedback. And they're really, really thankful about that. One of the questions that they've asked is quick, but probably silly question. How were you able to see the old website's top pages? Which tool was it? I've got the migration doc from the SEO who did it, but he didn't record any of the traffic data or anything like that. So I guess more broadly, if you're going through a migration and you want to make sure that you have that data from pages that you have on your website before you do the migration, what tools are you using for that? Who would like to kick off?
I can jump in. Yeah, when doing a migration, I mean, you're using the same tools that you're using all the time as an SEO. So we want to save data from Search Console or GA4. If you want to see your top pages and your keywords, then using a tool like Ahrefs, SEMrush, Systrix. Sorry, I see you're in here. We won't leave you out. And so using these tools, then you can be able to quickly see, you know, what are the top pages, what are the keywords. But even without that, in Search Console, you're able to get a lot of information. I know that there's a lot of nuances to that, and we could probably talk for hours about it, but just like a quick and dirty understanding, you know, which pages we're getting read, which ones we're getting traffic. And yeah, if you still have that old analytics set up, you can still pull that data. It should still be there. And if you don't, then yeah, go on to Ahrefs or SEMrush and try to look at the historical data. And then from that, you'll at least have like a sampling of what happened. So data is not 100% lost. It's just not going to be 100% accurate.
Great. Yeah, I remember this question, and obviously when the original one was sent through, I didn't have access to their analytics or Google Search Console or anything. So I think I was using Ahrefs, but you know, Dixon was on, and he's sort of like an ambassador for Majestic. So I'm sure he was looking at Majestic, and there are loads of other amazing tools that will give that sort of third-party tools that will give you an insight. So that's what we were using. But if you have access to Google Search Console, even if you don't have it set up yourself, it's one of those platforms that kind of backdates. So because it gets it from the search results, so it just doesn't need to be on your actual website. Analytics is different, but hopefully you've got that. So you'll be able to sort of put the dates in and see, you'll basically be able to see what pages were getting traffic and so on. I think Search Console only goes up to sort of 16 months. So that's the only thing. But yeah, if you get more accurate data if you go via Search Console, then you know I was using Ahrefs at the time. Katarina, do you have anything else to add?
Maybe you could also check or keep an eye on the backlinks, and especially if, broken backlinks, because you might find URLs on the old site then that have backlinks coming in, but maybe you lost the data or you don't find those pages anymore. So then you might find those ones in the backlink data.
Yeah, I remember from when we looked at it, there were tons of issues with redirects not working and leading to 404s and things like that. So yeah, definitely look there. Ruth, is there anything in the comments before we
Yes,
move on?
Simon, yes. Simon says a technique I use for migrations is to get all the old URLs from archive.org and test if they are 301. Often lots of links pointing to old URLs. That's a good tip. And
Awesome.
check if your client had previously set up BigQuery.
Perfect. Okay, next question. When you are wireframing new pages, what do you use to hand them off to your developer who also works on the design? I've got a clear idea of what needs to be done and I've sketched it out, but how do I make sure it's communicated properly so that it gets built? Anybody else doing that where you're working with designers or developers or a mixture of both and you kind of have an idea? How do you get what you've got in your head over to that person? Katarina, you're nodding. Are you happy to?
Yes, there is a tool called Mockup. Yeah, that's at least what we use. It's easy to like draw how you want the things to look like and just send it over. And of course, write comments for everything, so it will be so easy and clear as possible.
Perfect. Helene, what are you using
Yeah, I'm not designing web pages, but I'm often giving feedback on them. So usually they're done in Figma, or we're just working out the content in a Google Doc. It's not pretty, but we just break it down inside a landing page inside a Google Doc, and it's a collaborative effort. I mean, it's just being very clear about the goals that you have and how to achieve that, and being flexible in a way. I mean, especially if you're going to be working on a new landing page, you're not the only one that's involved in making that content. So yeah, it's anything that's a collaborative tool. I think it's great being able for people to comment and add their points. That's the best success you'll get.
Amazing. Ruth, I can see you chuckling away there. Have we got any comments in the chat?
Yes, from Simon. Yes. Yes, you said Simon here. When you hand them over, shout at the developer to ensure they understand what you need and don't just build what they want. And I think also it goes back to what Helene, you were saying about working collaboratively, and in my own experience as well. I think communication, if you can physically meet with the developer, that's really important. And you talked about testing. I really think usability testing has to come in not just at the end, but in kind of in the middle stages, so that people are testing links or seeing what it looks like on a mobile, for example. I do kind of a bit old school, a bit like the Google Docs, Helene, but also I'll say before we start, oh, these are the type of websites I like for these reasons, easy to use, X, Y, and Z. And I just think regular communication and physical catch-ups if you can. I'm not very good at shouting, so I'll leave that to somebody else.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't shout at the developers. I tend to use whatever my clients use, to be honest, or whatever the developers are comfortable with using and how everybody else is communicating things. If I'm working with a client that doesn't say have the time to say learn how to use something like Figma, for example, because I feel like that can be a little bit more complicated, there's a tool called Milanote, which is basically like a huge whiteboard. And I think it's similar to what you were saying, Helene, about using a Google Doc. It's kind of a bit like that, where you can just put shapes in, comments and share with people. And I found that that's probably the easiest thing to use. And I think one of the best things to do if you're not a designer is to sort of go and have a look at other websites and take screenshots of examples to kind of try and communicate what you mean. And make sure when you have those examples, you include things like URLs so you don't end up, so they can see how it works on different devices and so on. So yeah, that's Milanote if you don't quite have the time or expertise to use some of the more complicated ones. I've not used Mockup before. I've used Balsamic a long time ago. I don't even know if that still exists, but I imagine it's quite similar, where it's got templates already that you can pull across. Is that right, Katarina?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Great. Okay. Oh, we're flying through the questions today. Guys, I think Joe holds us back. I think we've learned that's what it is. I'm joking. Please don't pass that on. Okay, right. Actually, this is a nice one. We had a question just around, we're at the beginning of the year. Do you have any conferences that you'd recommend attending? I'm assuming this is SEO conferences. What conferences are we all going to? I assume Brighton SEO. I know that you've both spoken at Brighton SEO before. And the whole industry seems to go there for a big party. I'm not sure how much of the talks we all go to, but we definitely have a party on the beach. Helene, what are you going to this year?
Which parties?
There you go.
We know where Michael's headed at that.
In the bar.
Yeah, I do hope to get to Brighton SEO, of course, this fall probably. I did really want to go to Zagreb SEO Summit. They had that last year. I spoke at that and it was a really great time, really excellent place. Zagreb is cool. So that's a fun one. Yeah, I'm actually I think I'm looking a bit more at some SaaS conferences this year. So I'm breaking out of my normal SEO world and wanting to dive a bit more and see what other digital marketers are up to and how SEO can be helpful.
Oh, cool. And so any particular reason why going to those particular conferences? I'm referred to the SaaS ones, sorry, rather than SEO ones.
Well, the SEO ones are great, and I love to connect with SEOs, but honestly, it can be an echo chamber of SEO. We don't work in silos at work. I work in an agency. I'm working with people in all different departments, but they're all in SaaS. So understanding, what are the needs and the desires of the industry I'm directly working with. I think as SEOs, we really love to be together and talk about SEO together because we don't have many people to talk about it with. But I also really, I don't know, I love the idea of going out and teaching and bringing SEO to new people. So even just like being an advocate for SEO in the SaaS community, I think will be fun.
Great. Katarina, what parties are you going to this year?
Parties. Well, I have a long list and I have to choose the best ones. But from the last years, some of my favorite conferences were in Milan, Marketing Business Summit. It was a 2-day conference, and yeah, it was kind of affordable price as well, and maybe there was like 100 or 150, so smaller group, so you can chat to everyone, maybe almost, and yeah, that was really fun and nice location as well. Also went to Zagreb, that was cool. But this year also as a new one is the WordPress main conference. I've been to a couple of SEO Vibes events, both in Helsinki and Stockholm, but I haven't been to the main one, so I think I will go there. It's in Zakopane and in May.
Great. Ruth, where are people going? Has anybody mentioned anything in the chat?
Yeah. So actually, Steve, thank you very much. He has a link to Resignal that has, it goes through all conferences from now, like last few weeks ago from London to Amsterdam this year, which is great. And, you know, I'd love to go to the International Search Summit in Barcelona in November and hang out with Joe, but we'll just have to see. There's actually quite a few here in Sydney. I mean, there's Sydney and Melbourne. So there's nothing where I am in Brisbane. So I don't know if I can see myself flying to Melbourne or Sydney for these events. Albert says nothing, not happening in India. And Simon says, as an SEO, go to dev meetups and online conferences. That's great. Yeah, to help with my tech SEO. And Helene, thank you for posting that link about the Grab SEO Summit there. That's perfect.
Amazing. I think one of my favorites that I've been to in the last few years, I missed it this year, unfortunately, but Google Search Central in Zurich, that was good, hearing from Googlers about updates. There was one just before Christmas, but that was really, really good a few years ago. I think the best conference I've ever been to, which I haven't been in the last few years because it's so far away, but I've been quite a few times, is in Texas. And it's by the guys, it's CXL Live. And originally it was more about conversion rate optimization, but now they kind of cover a bit of everything. But it's the format that's amazing, where it's a 2-day event and there's actually only like 2 or 3 speakers. And instead, the whole thing is just roundtable discussions where they do tons and tons of surveys before to find out about you and what you want to get out of the conference. And, you know, you go from anything from having a chat with people about, like, one of the conversations I was having was about how do you get business from the American market, for example, as an agency. And there were a ton of people from overseas there, as well as some people that had already done that. We were just kind of sharing ideas, whereas the next table I was on was around content marketing, and it felt like I could contribute more to that. So it was just a really good way of meeting people. So if there is anything like that in the UK, that would be really, really cool. There's obviously next week, I think it's Search Manchester. Amanda Hall's put something up about it. That's on Tuesday. And then there's the SEO FOMO event in London on Thursday, which I'm very excited about and going to. So I've come off the wait list. So hopefully that will be, if we were doing this again, that would be on the list. I feel really bad that we've asked this question this week because the person who is most passionate about events isn't here, which is Joe, which is a shame, but maybe we'll ask her next week. Okay, next question. How can I utilize Google Trends to identify emerging keywords that my competitors may be using? Helene, are you okay with starting with this one?
Yeah. I wouldn't use Google Trends to identify emerging keywords that my competitors were using. I get the intent and it makes sense, but just look at your competitor's website. Also check it in an SEO tool. You can easily just put it in there and put the date frames and say, hey, compare it to like 3 months ago, see what's new. I just check their blogs. I mean, you can see the last few things that they posted. I can kind of get an idea, okay, did this work? Let's go check it in an SEO tool to see if it's actually getting keywords. Are they meaningful? Does the search intent make sense? But Google Trends, maybe you can use this for understanding the distribution or cultural differences in different terms. I think, but using it to find competitors' keywords, that's not going to work. Not the right tool.
Perfect. Okay. Well, you've answered that really amazingly. Katarina, do you have anything to add?
I also wouldn't look in Google Trends. I would look in SEMrush because they have this section like where you can do a keyword gap analysis. So you can put in your domain and the competitors, and then you see how many keywords do you have the same, where are you missing, where does the competitor have keywords, and you can also see their positions and URLs. So I think that's the most easy one to use.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree with you both. I personally wouldn't use Google Trends for that. I think trends are great for spotting trends and seeing if you want to find out a bit more about keywords, for example, and sort of related terms. But yeah, I would use one of the other SEO tools that you guys have said. Ruth, is there anything in the chat?
Yeah. So give me 1 second. There's quite a few. Yes, I agree with SEMrush as well. I've used that before. Here we go. Glimpse. Caitlin says you can use Glimpse on Google Trends for merging keywords, which enhances trends with far more data, has around 10 free uses a week. And yep, Helene, yeah, you're true. Glimpse is great. And very Francesca. What else is I can't see that image there, but that was it. And actually, I've just used Google Trends for the word chocolate in Australia in the past 30 days. And if you go back 30 days, it takes you to the 17th of December. Funnily enough, there was a peak of chocolate on the 23rd of December. And then it's dropped quite significantly after Christmas. So from that point of view, I think Google Trends is quite interesting. So no, that is all in the chat.
Great. Okay, next question. So this might be a bit of a complicated one to explain. So this company has a HubSpot. They're using that as their CMS for their website, and they've got two websites. They've got an Australian version of their site, which is their main site where they offer their products and services, and they have a New Zealand one-page website at the moment that they would like to expand. And they basically want to get our input on the best way to transition over from their current one page for their .co.nz domain to basically using language variants of their Australian website. So using, I think HubSpot has baked in hreflang tags when you basically use variants. And what they want to know firstly is when they want to launch all these variant pages of the Australian website on the New Zealand domain, do they just delete the existing pages, which are more or less the same, or how do they handle that? And then the next question that they've got is what's best practice for the blog? Do they just copy over or create these variants from the Australian website onto the New Zealand website, or do they create brand new content for the New Zealand website? Hopefully that helps. They have ended it with not sure if that's straightforward, if that's a straightforward one to answer or not. Who would like to kick off on this one? I'm happy to go if not, but if not, would one of you like to start? No? Okay, I'll go for it. I'll go for it, Helene.
No, I was saying someone else go for it. I felt like I was jumping too much.
Oh, okay, cool. So obviously, if they don't delete this one pager that they've currently got, then they're not going to be able to use that URL, or they need to replace it, or they need to put it there, right? So I would say, reading through this question, I think I understand what you want to do. My main advice would just be, if you're not an SEO, is just to check your server, or if not, there might be something in HubSpot where if whatever you do doesn't work, you can instantly roll back. So with a lot of my websites, I use SiteGround, and when I'm making major changes, just before I do, I just go and create a backup. And so then if I'm making those and it hasn't quite worked, you click that button and it just goes back to the date that you, or the time that you picked. So that would be my advice. I get what you're doing in terms of saying, if you're searching from Australia, can you serve this version of the site? And if you're searching from New Zealand, can you serve this site? That makes sense. And you kind of want to say that that's not the same content. So if you are, I think it is, I think with HubSpot, it does do hreflang tags. So that to me makes sense. I think when it comes to the blog, there may be some blog posts where there's a crossover. However, obviously, New Zealand is a different market. So if, for instance, you're doing any reports or anything like that, I imagine the news or whatever it is in New Zealand isn't totally the same as it is in Australia. So I would also have some content that's unique to that country. if you've only got one page at the moment, you're probably not getting a lot of traffic from New Zealand. So you've got nothing to lose. I'd sort of say that keep an eye, as you don't have to do it all at once. You could do it gradually and just test out these variants on a few pages rather than doing the entire website straight away. But yeah, and the only thing I would add is if you make any of these changes and you add all these variants, and obviously you want to make sure they're set up correctly, I would also keep an eye on your Australian website and just see the impact that launching this New Zealand version is having. So if all of a sudden you're seeing a dip over on the Australian side, it might be that you're doing something wrong on the New Zealand side. So I don't know how familiar you are with SEO, but that would be my advice. Be prepared to roll back and usually through your server, it's very easy to do that, and just keep an eye on both sites and test, don't need to do the entire website at once. Okay, I think I understood that question. Helene or Katarina, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I would just say really think about if you need 2 different blogs as well. A lot of people think, oh, I need a different blog for every single English speaking country. And they're just producing the same content and it just has hreflang. So if it's not going to be, unique and useful, you might be making things more complicated for yourself. It really depends, I think, on the niche, what you're doing. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. Something that can roll back, because there can be, a lot of messy things with serving the wrong page in the wrong country and ranking in New Zealand, but then not in Australia, and it can get very messy. So yeah, just be careful. Consult with an SEO, not just us. Yeah. A bunch of people just saying nonsense. No, we are. But yeah.
Wow.
I mean, come on. We could be anybody here, but I mean, yeah, I just like to be transparent. Just keep it as simple as possible, really.
Great. Something I don't think I may not have mentioned, so I've just shared the question, is that it's 2 different domains. So it's not all on the same website. They've got the New Zealand, they've got the Australian one on the .com.au and the New Zealand one on the .co.nz. Not sure I mentioned that, so it's not a subfolder. Katarina, do you have any thoughts?
Well, if they are different domains, then at least you need to connect them with reflang. But yeah, we also have had a similar case. So we have there we had different versions for the more important pages like products and categories and maybe about us pages or some other things. But then we left the blog as just one. We didn't split that into 2 language versions, and it doesn't then get so much duplicate content either. So yeah, I think it's not an easy question.
Great. Ruth, do you have any comments in the chat?
Yes, well, yes. Simon says, yeah, you're bang on. Helene, don't overcomplicate it, simplify it. And I was wondering what you were saying there, actually, Katarina. Would there then be a risk if you did have a separate blog for duplicate content if there wasn't that much difference because it's the URL? So then, in theory, you could be penalized, couldn't you, for having duplicate content?
Yeah, if it's not canonicalized correctly, probably could be some issues.
Hence another reason, simplify it. And then we've got here. Yes, Mama says to briefly run both the original .co.nz page and the New Zealand variant simultaneously. A banner or message on the original page can inform users about the upcoming transition and direct them to the New Zealand site. After a period of time, for example, a week or 2, you can then implement a 301 redirect. But as you were saying, Michael, this is a .com.au site and there's a .co.nz page, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's 2 different websites, but they don't necessarily need both being served in each market. So that's why you would use the sort of international, that's why they're thinking about the variants, because I think that stuff is, like I said, baked in with HubSpot. Okay, next, how are we doing for time? Oh, okay, we'll go with this one. So this is again a follow-up of, I think it was last time we were talking all the time before, and we've come back to talking about disavows. So this person obviously asked a question last time about it, and we talked about it for a bit, but I think they're still a bit unsure. So morning, just coming back to that question around dodgy links. I too would imagine Google discount those dodgy links, and I appreciate if we start disavowing, it's a moving target. However, would it not be worth doing a disavow once a quarter or once every 6 months? They then submitted an article where Google explains that disavowing toxic links is a billable waste of time. That was on Search Engine Roundtable. So they're very clear that they're aware that, you know, Google's stance on this is pointless. But they're saying the question is, you know, if we're getting targeted, would they not think they're wasting their time and money unless they thought there was going to be some sort of impact? So should we go ahead and disavow or not? So it's, yeah, that's their question. I can see Rob is shaking his head saying no. I assume that's to this. So it's basically saying they're being targeted, somebody is doing it, and surely they're doing it for a reason. Should they not just do it anyway? You guys, what are your thoughts?
If it helps you sleep at night, but let your competitors burn through money and time. I don't know. I think John has said this enough that we can all, like, yeah, we don't have to worry. If it makes you feel better, do it. But otherwise, Google ignores.
Katarina, do you feel the same?
Yeah, I'm usually a bit careful with going and disavowing, and usually I recommend not to do it as well. But,
Great.
Yeah.
I feel the same. I haven't changed, very similar to what you both have said. I think you could spend that time doing other things. And even though the person said it's a moving target, it is, you know, you can end up spending quite a bit of time each month or each quarter or however often you're planning to do it, doing this, when you could be spending that time making your website better, working on content, working on other PR projects or campaigns or whatever. Ruth, do you have any comments or any thoughts?
Nothing else. We just said that, yeah, if I was your competitor, I would say, yes, go ahead and disavow. It is really important. Oh, and this is another comment, but no, nothing else. So basically, the summary is don't bother with the disavow, focus on other SEO techniques to improve the website.
Yes, I think so.
Michael,
okay.
can I just,
Of course.
as
Hey,
I
Rob.
was shaking my head so vehemently,
Hang on, let me just add you in a minute. There you go. Go for it.
I would say that assuming that they have a reason is giving them a bit too much credit. And secondly, if they do have a reason, I think assuming it has anything to do with you is nonsense. Yes, there's probably a reason they're doing that, but if they're doing it to you, they're doing it to hundreds of others, and I wouldn't assume it has anything to do with you whatsoever.
Great. Perfect. Thank you very much. Yeah, I agree. I've seen a lot of, we had a similar question going back about 4 months ago where they shared some examples where it was a whole list of links to websites. And sometimes I think they include almost like even better or legitimate websites on these lists that sort of, you know, that helps with their campaigns of doing negative SEO. So I think you're right. It's probably nothing to do with you. It's probably the others on the list or somebody else on the list that they're trying to do something to.
It just sounds like a lot of effort for that competitor to keep doing that. So much time.
Yeah, but I think like the article that's been shared where, you know, if people can get away with charging to do these things, then
Yes,
then
yeah.
that kind of makes sense. Cool. Thank you, Rob. Okay, right. Next, we've got 7 minutes. What do we do? Yeah, okay, we'll very quickly go for this one. Finding work as an SEO copywriter is particularly challenging at the moment, especially with the rise of AI. How do you get hired? I've applied for multiple roles, but haven't been selected. And to be transparent, they've also put in brackets here, including the Good Signals website, which is our business. So I feel like this is slightly pointed. So I'll definitely cover that in a second. Okay, so if you were an SEO copywriter, how would you find work? Has anyone got any, or how would you get hired actually, not necessarily find the work? Helene,
Network. I mean, you have to be vulnerable. You have to put your work out there. You have to share it and talk to people. Just be human. If you're looking for SEO contracts for doing copy work, send me an email. I mean, I work with tons of different clients. Ask agencies. We're always looking for random people to share with our clients. Yeah, start there. Just start bothering SEOs. You'll find a job. Don't worry.
Perfect. Katarina, what about yourself? Anything to add?
I don't know. Helene's answer was good.
Perfect.
Yeah. It is, yeah, networking. And so, and there you said 100 on networking. Yeah, that's so true because, but I also think it's not just going to events and saying this is what I do and, you know, and giving examples of what you do. I think it's like when you go to, I don't know, your friend's house for a birthday party and you meet someone for the first time, or if you're new to a neighborhood, I think there's a lot to be said for saying a couple of sentences about what you do and that you're looking for work and this is my skill set. Nothing shameful of that. And yeah, in your personal life and the working life, because a lot of people will tend to hire people that they know. And how do you get in if you don't know anyone? And I've moved around quite a few times, and it's a case of networking a lot.
Amazing. Yeah, so we get lots of applications from freelance writers because obviously being an SEO agency, we create lots of content for clients. And I've got quite a robust process here, which is well, I think it is anyway, is basically when people apply for a freelance writing position on our website, and we get, I'd say, roughly between 50 to 100 every week. What I'll do is I'll take those applications, and one of the fields in the form is, can you please share your best work? And obviously it's about organic traffic and so on for us. And so I just basically look at every single one and I put them through, I batch process them through a tool like Ahrefs and find out how much traffic those articles have achieved. And for example, if none of your best work has ever got any traffic, then straight away, therefore, that doesn't make sense for us, because our goal with our clients is to try and generate them traffic. And then, so every week I'm testing new writers, and it's usually based on those ones that perform well. So it doesn't matter, where anybody's from, and in fact, how much you charge or anything like that is purely based on, does it work? And obviously we take into account, depends on what you're writing about and so on. So even if your articles only get, say, a few hundred clicks as opposed to thousands and thousands, it may just be that the topic's not that competitive. But that's my first starting point, is it needs to generate, they need to have generated something. And then obviously, usually when you apply for something, you tend to put what topics you write about and you give previous examples. So depending on what the clients, what they specialize in, I tend to then pair up people. But even before that point, I tend to test people. So if I'm honest, it's purely down to what you've done in the past from our perspective. So I would just say, if you're putting examples of your work forward, obviously it's really good if your work has also achieved things like, great coverage and stuff like that. That's obviously something else that makes it stand out. But if, for instance, you're putting forward a post that this is the best thing I've ever written, or these are the best 5 things, and nothing has ever been looked at by anyone, then that's it. I then can't, use that for one of our clients, because obviously the point is to get traffic. So I'm sorry, I just thought I'd cover the one on the good signals one. So sorry. And if you have got traffic and maybe we've got that wrong, feel free to reach out to me. Great. Final question. We've only got a few minutes left, which is, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO? Katarina, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO at the moment?
Well, I want the SEO conference season to start again, so I can see all the friends from all over the world.
Hey, and party as well, obviously.
Yes.
Helene, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO?
The diversification of search. I'm really excited about it. I think it's a really exciting time for tech and for search. So looking forward to see where it goes.
Great. Ruth, what about you? What are you most excited about in terms of SEO?
The endless opportunities, and I'm really focused on usability this year. So I really want to see more sites that are more accessible for people. So lots going on.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you to those that joined us live.
Yes, thank you all very much.
Yeah, thank you to those watching afterwards on YouTube. Thank you to our speakers, both Helene and Katarina. Thank you so much. You're amazing. Ruth, I was about to say Joe. Ruth, thank you so much for stepping in this week and co-hosting.
Thank you.
And thank you to those that submitted the questions. I hope everybody has an amazing weekend. See you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.